right. Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to the Griot Podcast. We'll be right back.
It's over. Yeah. Over 50, man. You know it. It's so. Shout out to United Front. Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Hey. Cognitive dissonance, colonized indigenous minds, bodies, innocence, European participants, Jesus no deliverance, rebellion with militants, culturally different, rape, murder incidents, justice no equivalence, lyrical abolitionists, ancestral reverence, soul music the resonance, mind sharp like elephants, melanin glow, elegance, imperial pestilence, governmental negligence, miracle black excellence, manipulate the elements, formulate with eloquence, bars of social relevance, United Snakes decadence, African-centered preference, my people set the precedence, MCE the delegates, go and check the references, eat it out the sediment, evaporate impediments, this that shit excrement, our story indefinite, saying Kofi by increments, body temple instrument, tuned into the infinite, over.
All right. Again, welcome back to the Griot Podcast. I am one of the hosts. I am Kofi Piese. I am an author, a writer, a ghostwriter, a podcaster, a publisher, amongst other things.
Yep. And you know what it is, man. It's your man Sean P, the host of the Sean P Presents podcast, also self-published author, also instructor, teacher, amongst other things, man. Ready to rock and roll with the Griot Podcast. Let's get it.
All right. So I'm gonna run down again before we get started. I'm gonna run down our outline, and then we'll begin the show. We'll bring our guests on. Right. So the outline for the show is we're going to always open a segment up with honoring a teacher, a scholar, writer, author, a revolutionary from the past or the present. We got a sponsor segment. We always got to big up our sponsor. We also have a Griot segment where we're going to briefly talk about the Griot and the Griottes. Then we'll go into our guest segment. We have our brother Blak Pantha. We'll be discussing his book, Is African Spirituality a Religion, right? Woman segment, we're going to briefly talk and give flowers to women who have contributed something of value to the political world, writing world, author world, business world, medical world, or the academia world, right? So I'll start off with the opening segment. The opening segment, I'll be honoring Dr. Fukiao, right? And we're gonna probably mention Dr. Fukiao maybe quite a few times in this podcast. But Dr. Fukiao is a BA, MED, MS, and PhD, is an indigenous African teacher, scholar, lecturer, healer, and spiritual guidance. He is the author of many books, including Simbe, Hold Up That Which Holds You Up, African Cosmology of the Bantu Congo, and Self-Healing Power and Therapy. He has lectured on Africa concepts of reality and African spirituality practice throughout Africa, Europe, and the United States, the Caribbean, and South Africa. He is one of the great elders of the African family and true gift to humanity. So there is my honoring part of Dr. Fukiao. And like I said, we'll probably mention Dr. Fukiao a couple of times in this episode.
And for my honoring segment, I am honoring the great ancestor, Runoko Rashidi. Runoko Rashidi was a writer and a speaker who lectured on ancient Egypt. His belief in the African presence in a prehistoric America, Africans in antiquity, and the African presence in Asia and other parts of the world. Runoko Rashidi is the author of Introduction to the Study of African Classical Civilizations, 1993, and the editor of Unchained African Voices, a collection of poetry and poems by death row inmates at California San Quentin State Prison. Also the author and editor of 18 books, including African Presence in Early Asia, Black Star, African Presence in Early Europe, and the African Star over Asia, the Black Presence in the East. Runoko Rashidi was a member of the editorial board of Africology, the Journal of Pan-African Studies, and he held the honorary doctorate of divinity from the Amun-Ra Theological Seminary in Los Angeles, California. He's also supported the work of controversial scholars like Ivan Van Sertima. Renoko Rashidi died on August the 2nd, 2021. This is very, very recent. While on tour in Egypt. He died while on tour, guiding the tour in Egypt. That's incredible, man. He was still doing the work all the way until the end, man, for real. So salute to our honored ancestors.
All right, all right. So there you have it with the opening segment. Now we'll go into the sponsor segment. Our sponsor. We always have to give it up to our sponsor. Our sponsor is Tracy George. Her business is Village Seated. Village Seated is based on a Riverside, California, and is about coming together as a village to spread the seed of knowledge by recommendation, donation, and selling books. Its focus is building relationships within the community to provide support and awareness. So shout out again to Tracy
Yes.
George
Shout
from
out to
Village
the
Seated.
sister, man. Yeah, I'm glad she back. She back at it, getting it in. Follow her pages, man. She's a very supportive sister, man. Holler at the sister.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So this is a segment that we'll never get rid of. This is the Griot segment, right? So we're gonna run down what a Griot and Grioti is, because there are still people out there don't know what a Griot or a Grioti is and the many roles that they facilitate. So a Griot today lives in many parts of West Africa and is the presence among the Mandi people, the Melinki, the Bambara, the Fula, the Hassa, the Sangha, the Tola, the Wolof, the Sira, the Masi, the Dagomi, uh, and many other smaller groups. The word may derive from the French transliteration grata, or in the Portuguese words credo, and the masculine singular term for servant. Griots are more predominant in the northern portion of West Africa. In African language, griots are referred to by a number of names: the Jali in northern Mandi areas, Jali in southern Mandi areas, Jula in Wolof, Gwala in the Pular. uh, Griots form the enugamous caste, meaning the most of them only marry fellow griots, and those who are not griots do not typically perform the same functions that the griots perform. What is a griot? A griot is unique to West Africa. The griot or jelly profession encompasses many roles. The griot, pronounced griot, has been referred to as a historian or a storyteller, but there are no real words in the English language that includes all of their functions. The traditional griot could do everything from recounting history to encompassing music to teaching students and acting as a diplomat. They are genealogists, historians, spokespeople, ambassadors, musicians, teachers, warriors, interpreters, praise singers, masters of ceremonies, advisors, negotiators, and mediators. Not every griot does all those things, but these are some examples of the functions the griot's profession embodies.
And then I'll bring it to our sisters, our wonderful ladies, the griottes. Griottes, well, yeah, griottes, both women and men can be griots. Yet traditional gender bias have delegated female griots or griottes to a lesser known status. Griots and griottes are trained in the same way, though griottes tend to learn more from other women. Traditionally, griots specialize in history conveyed through spoken word, while griottes focus on praise through song. Griottes specialize in singing. Often, men and women perform together, with the griot playing the kora and the griotte singing. Traditionally, women do not play instruments like the kora or the drums, but sing instead. Lately, however, the difference between men and women griots have begun to blur. Exceptionally talented women can become master griottes as well once they reach middle age. The griotte is a female storyteller. She traditionally sings at the ceremonies, celebrations, and special occasions. When a woman is married, a griotte will sing to her to prepare her for her new life. West African women sing about women's roles in the society and their relationships with husbands and in-laws. Griottes also use songs to express their independence and self-reliance, or to give comfort, encouragement, and empowerment to other women. The Asabi is a long poetic narrative form sung by West African women to reveal the nature of relationships between men and women. That's our griottes. Shout out to the ladies.
All right. There you have it about the griots and the griotes. most people should be familiar with the Griots and the Griottes now, but that's a segment that we'll never get rid of.
Right.
Because we want to continue to inform y'all what a Griot and the Griottes is, because this is the Griot podcast, and we do
That's right.
consider ourselves to be griots, right?
Yep.
So now let's get into the guest segment, right? We have a guest on the panel who is not a stranger to the platform. You know what I'm saying? My brother, Blak Pantha. So Blak Pantha, could
Black
you
Panther.
briefly introduce yourself to the people who may not know who you are?
Lafayette Mandela, Baby Fahudier, your favorite warrior, Black Panther, in the building. I appreciate y'all for having me on. For those who do not know me, I am the founder of the Masi Warrior Clan Scholarship Research Team. I am an author. I am a article writer. Man, it's just so many things. It's hard to spit them out when people ask you. I am an Ogun priest. I am initiated to Ifa. I have several shrines in my home. I am dedicated to West African Orisha worship, formerly known as Isheshe. Um, and, that's me, man. I'm happy to be on the podcast, happy to help these brothers push information forward towards Black people, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on to the show. I want to say it publicly for everybody. Just like I was a fan of Kofi before Kofi and I ever spoke, watching his lectures and whatnot. I'm definitely a big fan of the Black Panther and your wife, by the way. Phenomenal family, man. I love what both of y'all do, and long time fan of what you do, man. So salute coming on to the show.
Appreciate you. And as my wife is a fan of you. So my wife got your book right here.
I appreciate that, man. That's big. That's big.
And before y'all started this podcast, she read this book. Man, I want to say she was reading this book about 2015. And,
yeah. It's been a while.
So
I appreciate it, man. Thank y'all. Salute.
So, it's important that we.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Full circle.
Yep. So, the name of this episode is "What is African Spirituality?" Talking to a priest, right? So you said you was a priest. You in your introductory, you mentioned yourself to being a priest of Ogun. So this is a title that, before we get into it, this is not something that was given to you. I mean, you just gave yourself. This was something that you had to earn, right? You had to train for, correct?
Yes, my official title is Ologun, which means owner or possessor of Ogun. That's my priestly title. It was given to me by my Baba Ode, which means father of hunters. Ologun Nimombon Ogundiran. That is the person who conferred this title upon me, which I had to train and learn, different modes of worship, different poetry about Ogun, different history about Ogun, how to perform certain rites, functions, and actions with Ogun, the Osei days for Ogun, and so on and so forth. So no, it's not something I gave myself. It was something that I had to earn.
All right, and I wanted to get that out there too, because as we was doing the promo for it, I said we actually literally talking to a priest, right? So I just wanted, you know, because sometimes people will give themselves titles and they didn't even earn these titles, right? So I just want to run that down so they can know exactly what you are. You are a priest, right? And this conversation that we have, you are qualified to have this conversation, right? So I just wanted to get that out the way, man. So this is what we're gonna do, man. We're gonna ask you questions, and we and these questions are coming from the book. We're gonna probably go off and talk a little bit more about the book. Hold on. But for people who don't have the book, go get my brother Blak Panther's book. Is African Spirituality a Religion? Right. So, and we have the links to actually all of his books in the description. So if you like this content or any other publication that he has, please go and support. All links are in the description of this show right here.
Appreciate that, fellas. Appreciate the support.
Man, no problem. No problem, man. So, and we're gonna go back in a back and forward fashion.
Okay.
With the, asking questions. I'll ask a question. Seanathan will ask a question, and so forth. Yes. So, my first question is, what is African traditional religion? African spirit. It's a threefold question. What is African traditional religion? What is
Okay.
African spirituality? What
Okay.
is kimoyo, and what is the proper term to describe African traditions? And I'm asking that question because there are people in the community that use the word ATR, African traditional religion. There are people in the community that use African spirituality, and there are people in the community that use kimoyo. So, can you briefly explain those and what would be the proper term describing our traditions?
Well, African traditional religion, or ATR as it's commonly used, was something that was created by John Mbiti in his book African Traditional Religion. And John Mbiti, his purpose was the respect that monotheistic religions get in Western society. And when I say monotheism, I mean Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. He thought that African tradition should get that same respect or be, on an equal or even playing field as those monotheistic religions. So he wrote his book, African Traditional Religion, in hopes of garnering the same respect as, his religious predecessors. So basically, African traditional religion is the amalgamation of African traditions organized in a way to be presented in a religious manner to other societies or cultures that may not understand how African practices are actually conducted. Although I respect Baba's work and I respect his writing, his teaching, and what he tried to accomplish, I do believe that it is not entirely accurate to lump all of these traditions together and simply call them ATR. African spirituality, as I should say, I'm going to read directly from my book because y'all ain't going to say he said one thing and then he said another. I'm going to read directly from my book so y'all know that I wrote this. African spirituality, the commonalities of indigenous systems of Africans across the continent whose goal is to manifest energies, worship natural forces in the universe, venerate progenitors and ancestors. So, what does all that say? That says that African spirituality is describing systems that accomplish the things that I just mentioned, manifesting energies, which we've deified these energies and called them different things, uh, whether it be Loa or Vudun or Orisha or Necha or Fangus or whatever we call them, depending on the region in Africa. We are in the business of manifesting these energies. We are in the business of venerating our progenitors, the people that come before us, and we are in the business of worshiping and venerating our ancestors, the ones that we are linked to by lineage, and the ones that we are linked to by society. So the systems in which Africa has produced, we have lumped them together to call this African spirituality for the common person that may not practice these different systems. If you do not practice Odinani, we need something to describe it to you. Odinani coming from the Igbo people out of southeastern Nigeria. If you do not practice Isheshe, we need a way to explain it to you. So Isheshe coming from the Nigerians, the Yoruba in southwestern Nigeria. So it's just a way to describe these things to the masses in the Western society. Now, recently, we've come up with a term called kimoyo. Kimoyo is an umbrella in which we put all of these different African traditions together and put them under this umbrella. So Kimoyo will eventually replace the term African spirituality. And it's very ironic that you brought up Dr. Fukiao because Dr. Fukiao gave us the term Kimoyo. So in his work, which you can find this in African Cosmology of the Bantu Congo. You can also find it in his dissertation, Digging Up the Past. You can also find it in Self-Healing Power and Therapy, another book that he wrote. He talks about Kimoyo. And in Kimoyo, he's talking about some of the same things that I mentioned in African spirituality definition, manifesting energies. And in that, we find that Kimoyo is a more proper term for African spirituality.
Okay, yeah, we definitely. I want to talk about Kimoyo a little bit, and I meant to show the book because this is a literature podcast. Again, this is a literature podcast. Most of our discussions is always based off either books we read or us bringing guests on who read books. So those two books that you just mentioned by Dr. Fukiao, um, I have those books and I meant to bring them into here, but I forgot to bring them in here. Now, going back to African traditional religion for a second, you mentioned John Mbiti. There is a European named Godfrey Parada. He was the one who who coined the phrase ATR. John Mbiti was the one him who is who also is a preacher from Kenya. Um and another individual from Nigeria, his name is Bola J. Idowu, and he is also a minister from Nigeria. And these two, like you said, champion and popularize the word African traditional religion and try to push it into, to push it into the academia realm, because now the word ATR is, and when you go to school in these colleges, in these institutions, you have the word ATR. But even like you said, with them using the word African traditional religion, it's still frowned upon, you know what I'm saying, by using that when they trying to get it accepted as being a part of all religions or being a part of the three Western religions, because John and BT, who was a Christian, Bola J. Udawu, who was also a Christian at that time. So I can kind of see their perspective and why they wanted to go in pushing African traditions to be recognized like those Western religions are. I just have a problem with the word ATR because again, we have no agency over that
That's
word.
the portion right there. So we have Christian practitioners
Mhm.
seeing pride in Africa, but not seeing enough value in it to practice it themselves.
Yes. Yep.
And
Mhm.
they wanted to push it to academia, to religiosity, to all of these different venues and these different places to try to give Africa respect. But nobody that was practicing these traditions had any say so.
That's correct.
Nobody that was practicing these things were mentioned or even included in the decision making process for this broad term that was just pushed out to the masses. This is why people like Asari Motep, people by like Brother Shakara, myself, you, Kofi, we have pushed Kimoyo because Kimoyo is a term that comes from the people. It
Yes.
comes from uh, the people in the Congo, in the central part of Africa, in which this is a term that we are including them in this movement we're trying to create. So it's a little different approach on our part versus the approach that came from brother John and Beatty and the several other people that you named, because it just did not seem accurate once you do the research and find out, okay, they don't want to accept it as a religion in the first place. So why are we forcing them to? Number one. Number two, okay, the ones that do accept ATR as a religion, where are we placed in the categories of religion? Because I don't know if people have even thought about this, because if you haven't studied religion as just a subject, you will not know that every religion on the planet is placed in a category, every single one.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
correct.
whether you're talking about, animism, monotheism, polytheism, pantheism, Hinduism, whatever. They're all in this category, whether it be, monotheism, polytheism, animism, whatever. They're all placed in religious categories. So when you say African traditional religion, you have to find out where they put African traditional religion and what do they categorize it as in this sphere of people that practice this around the world. I've included that in my book of where they place us in their sphere of who practices what. And that is called folk religion.
Listen, which is crazy to me. We gonna get on to Sean's question, but that's crazy to me. They place, if you look up the definition of folk religion,
which I have provided, which I will tell you.
Oh my goodness!
People gonna say is, what the hell is folk religion?
Yes, and Sean's holding it up. Seanathan's holding it up.
When you read it, you be like, wait, what?
Yes. What page is that? Sean?
Page 11. Page 11. What is folk religion? Page 11.
Okay. So if you go to my book, it will tell you that folk religion has, a wide variety of things, but it will also tell you that generally it's talking about practices that are outside of the official doctrine of practices. So there's folk religions for every religion you can think about. There's folk Islam, there's folk Christianity, there's folk Judaism, there's all types of folk religions. So they are basically saying we are not official in our doctrines and practices, and that we are the outside looking in from the monotheistic things that we see in the West.
And Blak Pantha
traditions are not official, and these traditions are official.
And you said on page 13, remember, folk religion is synonymous with urban, poor, unapproved, low, unofficial. Like you just said, that's crazy, bro.
Yes,
that's crazy. I definitely underline that.
It's a social element being intermixed into the religious sphere. So now we're not just talking about, ideology and theology. We're talking about social conditions. So now we're getting into racism. And racism now plays a part.
Racism, classism.
Exactly. So we're looking at caste systems, we're looking at racism, we're looking at social implications where they have put our brand of religion on this sphere. So we are at the bottom of this sphere because of external factors, not just theology. So people have to be careful when we embrace the religious titles that they have given us to include ATR. We are endorsing racism. Mm-hmm. I hate to break it to you like that, but because of how they have structured the racism rankings in the world, and this is coming from the Pew Institute for people that are wondering, who are the biggest religious research institute in the world. This is where I'm getting these figures and numbers and rankings and percentages from. They have put us right here and said ATR is a folk religion.
It's just so crazy, as all of us have studied many things in our life. I'm in the psychology realm. To see us on the bottom pole of psychology, to see us on the bottom pole when it comes to physical health, I'm in the physical health world too. To see us at the bottom of education, like every single part of life, it's like, okay, they're going toward the bottom. Off the top, they in the bottom. It's just
that's what they
every part of life is crazy.
And religion is no different. They want to keep us in where they want to keep us, which is at the bottom. So we shouldn't be surprised that religion followed suit with everything that you just mentioned. But when we embrace it as a religion, or our traditions as religions, or even try to advocate them for being religions, as some people have tried to do, we are going right into the slaughterhouse of racism and classism and everything else that has kept us at the bottom. And we can't do that just because we were trying to get a holiday or a few days off or something like that. It's not worth it in the long run.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad before you go into your point about it, you give the breakdowns of monotheism, pantheism,
Mhm.
and so forth, right? You give a brief, great breakdown of them before you go into why, you know, African spirituality is not a religion. So based on this criteria and these categories, this is where they are placing us, right? So and this is a good this right. This is a great discussion that we have, and so people can get some more understanding because I try to explain some of these things when I talk to people, and I'm just glad that you're able to break it down a little bit more concise than I'm able to break it down, man, and people able to see it for what it is, man. But let's go into the next question.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to put it. It might be a long answer for you, right? Because all of us have lived experience, and all of us have a trajectory of our life. But first of all, like, where are you from? I never asked where you were from, born and raised. And then, like, how you had your journey into African spirituality? I'm sure you didn't just start there when you were born and your family. You probably had to progress away from something and go to something else and then leave that, and then it's kind of our normal trajectory. So could you kind of give us a capsule of your journey to this point to being a priest?
Okay. I was born in Harbor City, California, near Long Beach. I was raised in Atlanta, Georgia. From there, uh, my mother was all over the place. And when I say all over the place in the religious sphere, I mean everything from meditation to crystals to uh psychic stuff to, I mean, she was a melting pot of religious information. But we did go to a church in Atlanta, Georgia, that was said to be New Thought Christianity, in which they did things a little differently from traditional Baptist uh, Christianity. There were a lot of African elements in our church, but at the end of the day, it was still Christianity. It was still Jesus Christ. It was still, things that you would recognize in the Christian sphere. Um, I don't know what it was. I just never really bought into it 100%. I can't explain why. Maybe it was the ancestors tugging at me, but I just never really bought it 100%. Um, from there, my journey in life led me to the Masonic Lodge. And in being a Prince Hall Freemason, I met a brother named Leon Wright. And Leon Wright challenged me intellectually with things that I thought that I knew. So he would give me books, he would give me books and I would read them. And I never thought about some of these things. And that just kind of started my mind to think about what else I really don't know. So instead of, things I thought I knew, I basically went on this journey of researching everything I thought I knew and making sure that it was what I thought it was. So that took me down a year and a half like rabbit hole of different things. And when I got to the bottom of it, I said, "Wow, this Christianity thing is not what I thought it was." And the history of it and it's being imposed on African people via the slave trade was something that put a bad taste in my mouth. Um, so, you start asking yourself the question that every Black person should ask. Well, what the hell was we doing before they came with them Bibles and them Qurans and and everything else? What was we doing? And being that I always knew that I was African because of my father born in Banjul, Gambia. Um, I never lost that part of myself. I mean, my last name is Njai, which is a Sir and Wolof name. So I never had a problem with being African. I just didn't really know what that meant at the time. So having to research that, having to ask my family members questions, having to go to Senegal, go to Gambia, going to these places and learn firsthand what that meant, what what does me being in this family mean? What is our family history? What is Gambia's history? What is Senegal's history? What is our, involvement in the slave trade? And all of these things that I wanted to know. It took a while, as it's on the screen, unlearn and learn, as most African Americans have to do. Hell, some Africans have to do that were born in the continent. So it's just the journey that I went to. And when I discovered Isheshe in 2014, well, they weren't calling it Isheshe then. Everybody was just calling it Ifa. But when I discovered it, I read a book by Philip John Neimark, I think his name is.
Yes.
And it's called Way of Ifa. I do not recommend this book. Let me just say that.
I got it. It's on my shelf. I wish you said his name.
It's not a terrible book, but it's just not something I would recommend you start off with. After reading the book, I wondered to myself, what Orisha is for me? I wonder what Orisha speaks for me. So I sought out a Babalawo, who is the Araba of the United States and Puerto Rico, Baba Adedayo Ologundudu, who is the person who eventually in life initiated me to Ogun. He is from Ile Ife, Nigeria. So I met up with him. The first thing I noticed when I met up with him is he kind of looked like my father. He gave me my first ever Orisha divination. And that is when I found out I was a child of Ogun, which I didn't think I was. I didn't think I was a child of Ogun reading the book. I thought, like most people, that I was a child of Shango. But I wasn't. Shango ain't show up for me. Ogun showed up for me.
I can see you being, I can see Ogun. I can see Ogun.
Well, Ogun is the one that is best for me in this life. And from then it was learning. It was going into the learning process. But unfortunately, the people that I was learning from in the beginning were attacking Orisha from a Cuban element. They were worshiping from a Cuban perspective. Me not knowing the difference, I was worshiping right along with them. It wasn't until 3 years later I figured out why some of the things just didn't match up. And that prompted me to start over. I started all the way over and started learning it from a West African perspective. And that is the path that put me on to eventually becoming a priest of Ogun, an initiate of Ifa, and still going further into that tunnel and learning more, accumulating more, knowledge and rank and things like that nature. This is a lifelong journey, a lifelong, run, so to speak. You'll never know all there is to Ogun. You'll never know all there is to Ifa or any Orisha that is for you. Like they say in, I believe it is Eji Okbe, or maybe it's Otura Oturopon. It says that no one can tie water in a knot. And what that basically means is at some point you have to settle with the knowledge that you have and become an expert at that knowledge before you think about moving on to something else. So I try to remember that.
Wow,
because
I like that. I love that.
Initiated. So I try to keep that in the back of my mind. And that's just the path that put me where I am today.
You real quick before I go to the next question, man. Okay, so Ifa, like majority of me studying for the past 11 years, up until like you said about 3 years ago, when you and the other brothers started doing the show and started correcting a lot of the information, um, you know, when you're looking at it from a West African a standpoint, a lot of things that we was taught, it was it was infused like with Lukumi and so forth, right? So Ifa. So now that term is now becoming popular because 3-4 years ago, I never knew it was called Isheshe. So so why now not Ifa and Isheshe?
Excellent question. Well, in the same way that we, brothers like Asari Motep, myself, you, Brother Shakara, have pushed the Kimoyo element to try to be an umbrella for African traditions, Nigerians have done the same thing with the term Isheshe, because for a while, Ifa was everything. They called everything Ifa. But just like African spirituality is not the most accurate term for all of our traditions, Ifa is not the most accurate term for all of the traditions that exist in the West African Orisha phenomenon. So every Orisha that you see has their own literature. So with Ogun is Ijala. This is the literature of Ogun and other hunters and other stories of hunters and things within the Ogun, sphere. For Shango, it'd be Pipe Shango. For Egungun, it'll be Iwi Egungun. So all of these things are like colleges. They're like universities. Like if you go to the University of Oshun, the University of Oya, the University of Olokun, all of them have their own literature. But Ifa is the corpus in which you will hear about all of these colleges in that corpus. So people thought that all the information was just coming from Ifa. And that's not true.
Right. I
In
really
fact, you will find information that conflicts from the College of Ogun versus the account from Ifa. So being that Ifa spoke about all these different divinities, this is why people just say, well, let's just call it Ifa. It makes sense, and that kind of put us on the path of trajectory of Babalawos know everything. Everything comes from Ifa. Ifa's up here. Everything is down here. And that's not true. That's not how it goes as far as the culture is concerned. All of these people, all of these different Orisha have priests. And you can see this model in different African systems. In Dibia is one type of priest in the Igbo, in the Igbo people, but they have other types of priests from other types of systems as well. I mean, you can even go to ancient Egypt and see the same thing, priest of Amun, priest of Ra, priest of Ptah, different types of specialists at their jobs, so it's no different in Isheshe. And with Isheshe, we have attempted to distinguish ourselves from other Orisha groups in the world. So the ones that do candomblé from, South America and Brazil, they worship Orisha their way. The people that practice Regla de Ocha or Santeria or Lokumi, they practice Orisha their way in Cuba and places like that. The people that practice Shango Baptiste in Trinidad, they do it their way. But we want to distinguish that the root of all of these splinter groups and splinter societies of worship, we are Isheshe. Isheshe means primordial. Isheshe means original. So we are essentially saying we are the original tradition of the land, and the land being Yoruba land, southwestern Nigeria, the home of the Yoruba people. So you'll hear people say Isheshe Lakba, and Isheshe Lakba basically means, the primordial tradition of the land, and people will respond by saying, Esini Bile or something like that, or Isheshe Lakbao. Basically, they're saying, may the tradition stay with us, the original people that started this tradition. So we even have an Isheshe Day in Nigeria now. So Nigerians have fully, got this thing off the ground, and it's spreading to where Isheshe is now a real thing, to where we are saying, as people that practice a certain way, this is us, Isheshe. And now, just like anything other thing, people try to hop on the Isheshe bandwagon, but it's up to us, the Isheshe practitioners, to say, this is our practice or it isn't, because people will jump on anything to make money. It doesn't matter what it is. If you start saying you got the best, grave digging business in the city, and nobody can dig them graves like Kofi Piese research team, somebody gonna come by and try to say they represent you. Oh yeah, I work with Kofi Piese research, and I got the same grave digging techniques that he do. You should come to me. So it's no different from Isheshe. People will actually be doing regla de ocha, but say that they're doing Isheshe because, like you say, Isheshe is popular now. It's hot. It's in the streets. You see the beads. You see this. You see that. People, want a taste of that and money. So that's going to be an eternal battle. No matter what we call ourselves, it's going to be something that people try to latch on to.
And all of that he's talking about, y'all, the listening audience. It's on page 85 if you have the book. Is it Sheshe Legba? So everything that he just broke down and discussed, it is on page 85. On page 85. Sean showing it up right there in this great piece of work. So also that led into, you mentioned on that page, and you saying these different colleges, which they are, right? Goon has his own, Shango has his own, all the Orishas have their own, right? So they have their own festivals, they have their own worships, they have their own favorite offerings. But you also mentioned, and you mentioned this earlier on, you happen to be taught poetry, right? So that would caught my eye when you said poetry, because I consider myself a griot, and one of the roles of a griot is poetry. They facilitate different things with cultural experiences, life lessons also through poetry, right? So my question is, who writes the poetry for the Orishas? Who are the one who writes the poetry for the Orishas?
The people that write the poetry for the Orisha are the priest of the society. So the Shango priests write the Shango poetry. The Oya priests write the Oya poetry. The Babalawo write the priest for Orumila. Write the poetry for Orumila, so on and so forth. So we go back to talk about specialists in the society. There are people that might be just their lane. Create what we call Oriki. Oriki is the praise poetry. Create Oriki for the deity. And the Oriki can be based off of, historical things. It can be based off of, things that we just notice in nature that we associate with the deity. It can be, things that are in the name of the deity that we want to highlight or, expound upon. Like, for example, Olokun, her. A lot of people think Olokun is a his, she's a her. Olokun, which is the deity of the sea, the ocean. Name means owner of the ocean. So in the Oriki, you may see wise one who owns the ocean. We want to highlight that. You also see things like owner of wealth, owner of cooling waters. These are all attributes of something we're seeing in nature, because the wealth part are the cowrie shells that come out of the ocean that we use for currency. The cooling waters is what you see as the rising tide ebbs and flows. So we're highlighting things we're seeing in nature, and that goes into sometimes the praise poetry of the different divinity. When we talk about Ogun and we say Ogun lakaye or sini mole, we're saying Ogun, the one is known all over the world, because no matter where you go, the technology, the iron, the innovation is what pushes societies forward. Metallurgy pushes societies forward. Metallurgy is how we advanced and built certain things in society. So we're talking about something that we've seen. When we say Osini Mole, we're talking about Ogun being a king at one point. So this is now a historical narrative. So now, different things like that going into every Orisha's Oriki or praise poetry. And this is what we use to call the divinities forward. Oriki is used not only as, entertainment or a historical lesson, but it's used to call a divinity forward when you are about to worship. So when you're in front of a shrine of an Orisha and you call that divinity forward, you use the Oriki. Basically, when the Oriki is chanted for a divinity, the Orisha go, you want me to come forward? Oh, you
Call me.
calling me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. I like to hear things about myself. Go ahead. Say that again.
Yeah.
That's me. He is okay. He is calling me. When I say Shango Lukoso Arira, Loju Lenu Ikuti Jagwe Mono Koto Pane Agbe Naje Ma or Jonah Ninu Odebi Jawu Bantu. He's going, oh, Shango. Oh, I am the deity with the fire in the eyes, in the mouth, and the one that comes forth with the shaky red. Oh, you talking about me? All right, okay, I'm here. What do you want now? What is it? That's how we call the divinity forward. So the praise poetry has so many different functions. It's historical, it's for entertainment, it's for calling deities forward, and that's why we learn the praise poetry for modes of worship and for modes of teaching.
Okay. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate it, because I'll show that who creates the poetry.
Oh,
But
yeah.
go ahead, Sean. It's on you, Sean.
Yeah. So question number 4. All of us are authors here, so we know a part of writing the book is the layout process, how you're presenting the information, right? So tell us why you decided to pretty much give a small rundown on a lot of the major religions in the world to put it up against African spirituality to decide if it's a religion or not. Tell me about that particular course, that route you chose.
Well, I believe, as our brother Asari Motep says, demonstration beats conversation. So when you are trying to convey a thought or present an idea, you have to go into what the definition is. We have to define what we're talking about first. So when we are defining religion, we have to go over what religion is. And as I explained in the book, there's not a consensus within Western academia of what religion is, but I give some of the thoughts of some of the most religious institutes of the world of what they think religion is. And when we are defining religions, now we have to give examples of religion. So we have to give examples of what they deem are these religious institutions. So we have to go into Christianity, we have to go into Islam, we have to go into Judaism, we have to go into Hinduism, we have to go into Buddhism, we have to go into these things that regular people in the West go, oh, I've heard about that. Oh, okay, that's what that is. Oh, yeah, I know that. And then we have to go, okay, these are the categories that these religions fit in. This is monotheism. This is polytheism. This is animism. This is that. Now, after I've built that framework, I go, well, this is why African spirituality can't fit in monotheism, because we don't have this. This is why I can't fit solely in polytheism, because we have this. This is why I can't fit solely in animism, because we have this. This is why we can't fit in pantheism, because we have this. And I show through work that African spirituality is so, its magnitude is too much to put in this box or that box or this box. It spills into multiple boxes, and there's not a term for all of these boxes when they come together, which is why we can't have it as a religion. If we just put the social implication or the racist implication aside and just look at theology, it just doesn't fit. It's a square peg in a round hole. So that's why I built that framework the way I built it, to show people, hey, these are what these are in, and this is how this works, and then show the antithesis, show how African spirituality is here and how it ebbs and flows, and then you start to go on your own, that ain't the same as okay. Like when I talk about the volume of sacred law, and a lot of people don't know what volumes of sacred law is, but volumes of sacred law are basically books that have everything you need to know about the religion. So for Christianity, of course, that's the Holy Bible. For Islam, that's the Quran and the Hadiths and all that, and then for Judaism, it's the Torah and the Talmud and things like that. And we don't have that for African spiritual practices. It don't exist. Even in our corpuses, you ain't gonna find everything. Like the corpus of the Odu Ifa, which most people will say, well, that's Isheshe's book. There's no Oriki in the Odu Ifa. So how you gonna call the deities? It's not here. You have verses about the deities, but doing the work, it's not going to show you that. There's no what we call Ijuba in the Odu Ifa, which is how we pay homage to different things and phenomenon in our practice. That's not in there either. There's a bunch of things in our tradition that are not present in the Odu Ifa or even in the Iyere Ifa. It's not there. So we don't have this volume of sacred law where we can go where, like the Christians say, oh no, brother, because in Isaiah 54 it says we don't have that. We don't. It's just not like that. Yeah. If I tried to make something with everything of Isheshe in a book, I don't know how long that book gonna be. You probably never read it. You be like, man, this 84,000 page book. This book got 28 volumes. They all 600 pages. Like, ain't nobody reading that. So that's just not how we process or we gave information to people in our wisdom centers. That's not how we did it. This is an oral tradition that we are now in this century trying to write books about, trying to make more accessible, and trying to write things for people to learn and read about. But traditionally, this was all mouth to ear. That's why Asar talks about this in my Pan-African journal, Killmonger's Corner. He has an article called The African Super Information Highway. And in this highway, he talks about people learning what they would learn in Nigeria, but travel to other parts of Africa and learn how they did it, learn how they were doing spiritually, and bringing that practice back to their people where they were from. That's how you learned. Because, you couldn't go on Amazon and buy nothing from Dr. Fukiao. You had to go to where Dr. Fukiao was at and see how their people did it. And we have evidence of this with the exchange of different masquerades and different cultures, which I talked about in my last presentation on the Masa Warrior Clan channel. We have an exchange with the brothers from Sierra Leone and the Gambians and the Yoruba people, and they have exchanged masquerades at different times. So when you go to Sierra Leone and you see this hunter's masquerade that is Yoruba, because they calling it Egungun Ode. You're like, what? Those are Yoruba words. What is it doing here? And then you go to Yoruba, you see, the Bundu, and you see that in Gambia. You're like, wait, that's a Sierra Leone masquerade. What is that doing here? Because of that cultural exchange in the Super Information Highway, which Asar was talking about. So those are just types of things where we can say, oh, okay, the literature and how they learned, you had to travel. So going back to the volume of sacred law, why we don't have it, our societies were just not built in that way.
Okay. Let me get to my next question. And I already asked that one too earlier. Too early, but my question would be, man, what impact did colonization have on African spirituality?
Whoo, man, a major impact, because and this impact is different for every society you'll come across. So, for example, there's a tradition called Ashinwa amongst the Jola people in Senegambia, in which they created deities that were anti-slavery. So if there was someone in the community that was slave raiding, they created deities in which they could find out who it was. That's a major thing. So entire deities were created in this society because of slavery and colonization. That's crazy. That's the impact of what we're talking about, you know. And then you got to look at the impact as far as Christian or Islamic things making it into the practice.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, and I just saw this on Instagram today that reminded me of it. You have a bunch of people that are Yoruba that have names like Olufemi or Olubambi, and they take the Olu and they believe that the Olu part means God. So a lot of Christian people will name their sons Olu this or Obat this because Jesus is known as the King of Kings. Oba means king. So they think that they are naming their son or whatever a king's name linked to Jesus Christ, a God's name linked to the Christian God. But they're not. These prefixes are originally from the Orisha known as Obaluaye, the Orisha of pestilence and disease. But they don't know that because colonization has trained people to think that these are words that denote Christian values instead of what it was originally was. So even the fighter, Israel Adesanya, he has an Olu name. It was during his last fight, he started naming all of his names. And one of them was an Olu name. And I just couldn't help myself. I said, I wonder if he knows that by that name, he's an Obaluaye child. I don't know if he knows or if he doesn't. But that's one of the effects of colonization. And that's really the purpose of colonization, to disable, disrupt, make people forget, change the narrative. That is what colonizers do. So colonization disrupted the natural flow of our spiritual systems. And one of the biggest things it does, it robbed brothers and sisters like everyone on this panel and everyone listening to this broadcast. It robbed us of the pleasure and our birthright to grow up in our traditions, to where now we got to be 20, some of us 30, hell, some of us even 40 years old before we find out, oh, I'm from here. This is what I should have been growing up in. This is what my name should have been. Oh, I was born on a Saturday. My people are from Ghana. They are Khan. My name should be Kwame. I was here. I was born on a Friday. My name should be Kofi. You know, I'm a sister. My name should be, Aya or something like that. We gotta grow up and find out what we should have been born into because of colonization. We have to save up all this money to try to go home and take DNA tests and connect with our family members, our Mboka in the continent, because of capitalism and colonization. We have to do all this work. We have to do all these podcasts and books and YouTube videos to even convince people that they're African, because of colonization and what they've done and continue to do. Mm-hmm. So colonization to our traditions has been, so detrimental, but we have survived. So, now that we survive, now that we know better, we have to continue to do things like this to pass the legacy on for our children, for the next generation, for everyone that, comes behind us, so they won't have to start where we started. I mentioned 20, 30s, and 40s, but I see children now growing up in this tradition from birth in the United States. That's the goal. That's it. That's Sankofa. That's Aluja. That's going back and fetching it. That's going back and getting what was ours and making it better and improving and all that. That's what it is. So as much damage as colonization has done, uh, we are doing the work to reverse the effects of colonization.
Yes, and that's and when you speaking of that, that's why you see Christianity heavy into Africa because of colonization. Now we mentioned John Mbiti, right? And we mentioned Bolaje Iduwu, right? One from Nigeria, one from Kenya. Both of those were Catholic Christians, right? They was Christian due through colonization,
And
right?
we gotta mention Samuel Ajay Crowder,
Mm-hmm. Yes, Samuel.
who through colonization of warping his mind started the Eshu is Satan campaign.
Mm. Right.
Which
She's
is still
correctly. Yep. You're still fighting that. Still, you definitely still fighting it because a lot of literature that you read, you will see that they
Satan,
comparing to
devil,
him as the devil,
Satan,
comparing him to him
devil.
as Satan. Yes, exactly.
Eshu, devil.
Yep.
You'll
Yep.
see that all over. And
Yes.
it's so crazy because none of the other Orisha got any other titles from the Bible. Like Orumila and Obatala didn't get Jesus. Ogun didn't get Paul. None of them got anything else. But Eshu was the only one.
Yep.
Oh yeah, we gonna pair him up
Yes, I'm
with the
telling
devil.
you. Yes, whatever you I'm telling you, a lot of literature that I have read, anytime they're talking about the Orishas and they mention Eshu is always compared to Satan or to devil. I'm
To the
telling you,
point where now they have an Eshu is not Satan movement
yes, it's
in
crazy.
Nigeria.
Mhm.
And fortunately, our sister Oloye Oshundamisi went and talked with the Eshu priest who created the movement and
Mhm.
is close with that family. And she did an interview with him that I was privileged enough to see the documentary about, where they deemed it necessary because they were going through that. Like if you are a priest of Eshu in Nigeria, that's added pressure because people think, oh, you work for the devil.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's what people think. So that's colonization again.
Yes.
So we just got to keep fighting a good fight.
Yes. Yes, man. Go ahead, Sean.
I'll go here for my last punch. Um, how do you think that our children and communities here in the U.S. would be different if we had the ancient like rites of passage programs they had for young women and young men to learn life skills and roles for the greater good of the community? How would that be different here in the U.S.? A rites of passage kind of situation.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is our children would not be so sexualized.
Yes. Yes.
First thing that comes to mind,
Yes.
because
Mhm.
when you grow up in a structural culture with norms and values and mandates and things you must do, the perception changes, the the manifestation and importance of destiny is in the forefront. So there are certain things that we just wouldn't value. We wouldn't value what a lot of the stuff that comes out of Western society today if we lived our culture. And it's not just for children, adults too. We wouldn't value that Gucci, that Louis, that Louis Vuitton, and all that other stuff that we covet so tightly. And once we're able to buy it, we feel like we made it. We wouldn't have those values if we were still living our culture. It's just unfortunate that you know, our children didn't get to grow up in that. And those children become adults and they gotta find out through life that, oh man, I was railroaded, I was ramrodded. Nobody told me about these traditional cultural things. And it's so crazy because even though we didn't grow up in our cultures, there's so many things that we do culturally that we don't know comes from Africa.
Pouring look out to the dead homies.
Nobody told us to do that.
Yep. We
There
just
was
did.
no teaching
Mhm.
in any walk of life for the majority of African American people, in which they were like, yeah, y'all should start pouring out y'all liquor for people that are no longer here. We start doing that on our own and found out later that this is called libation.
Libations is a part
You're
of
like, wait, what?
Yes.
I already do that.
Yes.
I already been doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of our little catechisms in the community growing up, you know, we can trace those back to things we find in the continent. So I think as a people, we would look more close to the product we saw in yesteryears, like the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, when we were, you know, more aware of our surroundings and what we had to do as people to try to push this thing forward. We've become comfortable in this covert racist society, and now, you know, we just act like, you know, there's not an enemy at the door when the enemy in your house. It's in your house. It's everywhere. But it's not overt anymore. You know, nobody's going to be in your face calling you the N-word most times today. They do it a different way now. So I think we would look different as far as how we move, how we act, what's important to us, what we say. Well, you know, we would be more powerful people. We would be more focused and serious if we just got into our culture.
And those rites of passages, man. And I keep saying those things are very important, right? Because they is what shape us. That it is what grooms us. It is what prepares us, right?
Imagine if the average person you knew what they were supposed to do in life.
Yes, yes, yes,
Because we don't know.
yes.
We don't know. You just kind of go through this, like, oh, I'm good at this. Let me stick with this. But imagine if your parents knew what you were supposed to do before you even got here, or 6 to 7 days after you came out the womb.
The, the
Hey,
name
Big,
of
Big,
Yeah.
you are also a professional basketball player, correct? I understand. Correct?
I do moonlight as a
But
professional
no,
basketball
my my
player.
my
Yeah.
my point is, if you didn't know your actual path, you would really stereotypically think I'm a ball player.
Yeah, I'll just be
Like
a
that's
ball
it.
player.
I'm,
That's
I'm, I'm
it.
a ball player. That's it. And whatever come along with that culture, I'm gonna operate and dress and talk and eat
Right,
and move like that.
right.
But you know better,
What if
so
I was never
therefore,
supposed to do basketball? What if I was just
yeah,
supposed to do what I'm doing now? You know, but we have things in our culture that we find that out before you even get a month old.
yes,
And that's the power of our culture.
right.
And it's not, and I want people to know those types of divinations are not just for the child. They're mainly for the parents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The parents are going to have to be the one to navigate you to what you're supposed to be doing. So if I know you're going to have a fiery temper, I need to start training you from little how to control your temper.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't end up in jail. You won't end up knocking somebody the hell out. So you won't end up being in a domestic violence situation. I need to show you things in the beginning, you know, but we don't have those things in Western society. So, you know, when these things arrive, you're like, oh man, he going crazy. He bucking me. He rebelling. I don't know what to do. We had things like that in our society.
Right. And you talking he's what he's talking about is the rites of passage, right? He's talking about the naming right. Like girls are named a certain not named right then, we already have the baby name before we even the baby is born. But the baby is not named in certain cultures. Some the woman name is named, 9 days or 7 days after the birth. The child is 9 days. It just all depends on the
Yeah.
culture, right?
And the
And
name would be linked to their destiny.
Nate,
So
right, will be
I
linked
do
to
this
their destiny.
sometimes
Mhm.
on my Instagram page. I'll take a guy's name and I break it down and show how that destiny manifested in his life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you break down Giannis's name, and most people know him as Giannis Antetokounmpo, but that is a name that he changed. He changed it when he got to Israel. His family name is actually Adekumbo, which means the crown comes from overseas. So he is supposed to be a champion that brings his crown back to his people. Ain't that what he did when he won the NBA championship? So the names are so important because it links things to your destiny. It links things to your state of being, what you're supposed to accomplish, what you agreed upon or was attached to you in the what we call the Orun, the alternate plane of existence, before you even came to Earth. That is important for somebody. That shapes your reality. So what reality are we being shaped in now?
None. None. That's why the rites of passages are very important. That's
Exactly.
why I highlighted them in my book, Beautiful Lessons of Kimoyo, to break them down. And we wouldn't have. This is just my opinion. We wouldn't have man on man. We wouldn't have woman on woman. We wouldn't have like you said, children not able to control their behavior because they easily to get angry. We wouldn't have um a lot of confusion when it comes to men not protecting their women and their children. We wouldn't have that. Now we would have more stronger men who protect, and protect their children and their women and are there in the household. We would have more of our children connected to their destiny, and we grooming them into whatever they supposed to be so they can share their destiny, their talents, their gifts with the world, right? So those rites of passages, man, like they are, they are very vital to me, man. Like I take those things, those rites of passages to heart. I'm trying to create something now with my Ubuntu youth program. It's just getting the men on board is the issue that I'm having for as the time and the commitment. But a lot of things that we wouldn't have, even like we have the things where our children turn 18 years of age. Here in the Western world, it says they are grown. I can't wait till I turn 18, right? I can't. So automatically, we're saying that they're grown. Oh, you grown. You got to go. You grown. But there, we hadn't groomed them. We hadn't put them through things. So when they get out in the world, they know how to handle, trials and tribulations. They know how to acknowledge other people. They know how to navigate through society and other people. They know how to conduct themselves with other people. These things we would definitely have because we think that the grown-up gene automatically turns on for our children at the age of 18 and 21, that the grown gene just pop on. Boop, they know what to do. That's why we have more lost children out there once they separate from the household, because we hadn't groomed them for the world. We hadn't groomed them to become an adults. And in African society, you is not looked at as a grown-up until you are until a consensus in the society say you are grown. So there are things that you have to go through. There are things that you must go through. There are things that you have to do in order to be acknowledged as an adult, man. So them rites of passages, man, we need them.
Some's book of Water and the Spirit, he talks about when he was, going into a teenage phase, how they all had to come to this rites of passage and go with the men. The men went with the men into the forest,
Yes,
and
yes.
taught them things, and they went through rituals, and they went through this, and then they were, recognized as being a man. But before that, whether you was 40 or 12, until you went through this, because he was coming back to the village after his colonization experience. And they was like, generally, boys go through this. But he was a man, but they was like, you can't be no man in our society until you done went through this door.
Exactly.
And if you ain't went through the door, I'm sorry. So he had to go as a as a older man.
Just to ask a real honest question. So if a man hadn't gone through that door, hypothetically, were you not allowed to like marry a woman and start a family? You had to go through that door first to do that. It's a question. I'm not,
Traditionally, in a lot of societies, you got to remember that marriage wasn't, I meet girl, we like each other, we make the decision to be married. No, your families are involved.
Yes.
Your parents meet with their parents. They run down the list of family members and see if you got any diseases in your family that they don't want in their family. You settle upon a dowry price.
Yes.
Settle upon, who and what and how and when. And so it wasn't even your decision for real. Come be honest with you.
So you avoid generational curses. You avoid the generational curse.
Right. So he wouldn't even been selected by, or accepted by a family. People got to understand in African traditional society, it's less about the two people and more about uniting families.
Yes, the family, the unification. That's why the marriage.
You'll find like couples and they're like, yeah, we've been together forever. And, we learned over time, our little things or whatever, but they may not have fell in love with each other like we do in Western society. It's just a different mission statement. It's different.
And he will be looked at. You can go ahead, Sean, but he will be looked at. He will be considered an it. You will be considered an it.
You want to marry who?
Right.
You ain't married. I don't remember you going to the rights.
Yeah, you ain't even considered a human being or a person. You as an it. You are it.
They probably just had a name for uninitiated or untrained person, but you ain't looked at as no man like a man of society that commands respect and commands reverence, and people look at it and go, hey, how you doing, brother? And people either greet a certain way. No, you can't be mentioned for any of that if you haven't gone through the rites and passages of that society. They just don't look at you as one of them. Some people have left because they didn't want to do these rites and went somewhere else and tried to do other rites. That's just how it was looked at.
I wanted to add something to the show because, like Kofi said, it is a literature podcast, right? So this year in particular, I've been on a private journey reading more fictional books. I've been like 15 plus years doing the non-fiction scholarly thing, right? But I realized in reading your book and Kofi's book recently, this past couple of weeks, in a lot of Toni Morrison books, a lot of Zora Neale Hurston books, Maurice Ruffin, Jesmyn Ward, right there. Jesmyn Ward, people holding some of the books up. They have a person in the book, mostly an older woman. She knows a lot of these practices and traditions. And we're talking about diviners and healers and mediums and other things y'all broke down in these books. And I'm telling my group chat, like, man, remember this in this book? Remember, I'm all night 4 in the morning. Man, remember that Toni Morrison book? They had this character, and the time I thought she was crazy, and they didn't really talk to her. And she dressed kind of different, kind of funny. She talked different. But they were showing all of these things in all of this popular literature. We just didn't know what we was looking at. You reading it. It was a caricature almost. That one character that was different. But, to bring it back home, and we're all writers now, the 3 of us. I told Kofi this last night. I think it's on us to put that in some fictional stories to make it more palatable to this society and our children, our young adults, and make it more, attractive, if you will. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to put that into the show.
It has to come from somewhere. All fictional writers have an inspiration of something, and it's usually something very nonfiction. It's usually something they seen, something they heard, something they experienced. I mean, even if you look at The Lion King, the movie, when we were growing up, The Lion King was one of the highest grossing movies in Disney ever had. The Lion King is based on Sundiata Keita's life. Sundiata Keita is an emperor from Mali. Is a real person, you know, like that's who they based this off of. And when you look at in the movie, when Rafiki caught the little feather in the air and he smelled it, and then he went down into his tree and he grabbed the fruits and he opened up the fruits on the board and he started doing his thing and he drew out Simba and he knew Simba was alive. That's divination. It's divination right in front of us. We didn't know that as children, and probably a lot of adults didn't even know that. But you're looking at it as, you know, people that are learned now and know what it is. You're like, wait a god doggone minute. Hold on. I didn't catch that the first time. But you just divined in front of the whole world. And I didn't even see it as a child because I didn't know what divination was. But looking at it now, I'm like, oh my God, that's fictional, but it has a very real element to it, you know. And now watch, everybody gonna go watch Lion King again. They're gonna look at that scene now. They go, oh, I didn't even
me tonight.
Yeah, but you know, I did the same thing. I did the same thing with Kofi and the modern day Griot book. As we're doing these podcast shows, you know, doing promo, I'm showing all of these TV shows and movies. There's most time a Griot somewhere in the movie, or a scribe, or you know, this advisor to the king or whoever. He the Griot. He telling you record of everything. He telling you what's going on. There's so many shows and movies, I mean, but we didn't see it like that.
Our kingdoms had the quote unquote wise man or special counsel to the king or something, you know, because the king know he can't see everything. He needs somebody to see you know, the gaps, the things that I missed. You know, what am I doing wrong? Why is this not manifesting? Is there something? And being that we have so much phenomenon in our you know, spiritual applications, there you might do something. You might walk past a tree at the wrong time, and you didn't piss some spirit off, and now that spirit is doing whatever. You need to know what did I do? Like what? I don't know what I did. Anyway, oh, this spirit said you walked past and you didn't salute the tree of the mothers, and now you gotta appease. Oh, okay. Tell them. Okay. I will comply. I didn't even know that's what I did. So, you know, as a king, as an important person of society, a chief, any type of thing, they need people, you know, to have their back. You know, so that makes it into, you know, other avenues, other fictional stories, because that's a real phenomenon in African traditions. I see them, you know, all the time, people making, you know, cartoons with Orisha in them or Egyptian figures, or, you know, I mean, we already know about things that made it into, you know, the Blak Pantha movie, and real examples like the Dora Milaje closely resembles, you know, the warriors of Dahomey, the female the Mino. So we know that they pull them type of things.
I was reading on the sacred objects last night and sacred things last night in this book, and they're talking about the sacred trees. But in the Blak Pantha movie, whenever he would go back to go and see his father, there's this big, huge tree.
Yeah, you know, looked like a baobab tree.
Yeah, that's right. That's in the book too. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the movie they were actually speaking Zoshan, and Zoshan is a real language in South Africa. So his father spoke the language and taught, you know, Chadwick Boseman a few words so they could interact briefly in that language. So, you know, every fictional type of thing has a root, and you know, you ain't just pop out of thin air.
No, right. All right, yeah. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yes, man. Well, that ends the question part, man. This and we're gonna go into the woman segment and we're gonna end the show, man. But
yes, sir.
We've been getting a lot of great feedback and comments in the chat. This has been a phenomenal interview.
Yes.
Like, I mean,
thank you, man.
With a lot of information. Yeah. I know it might have cleared up a lot of things from my brother. Also, he did well. You did it superb on interviewing brother Blak Pantha, Sean. he was a little nervous, Sean. I mean, Blak Panther going into it because he said, "Man, this y'all lane, this y'all expertise." But I told him,
But
"Man, you well equipped once you read because he's reading my book, he was reading your book. He was like, "Man, some of this stuff I don't understand." You know what I'm saying? I said, "Man, keep reading. You're gonna be able to get it, and you're gonna be able to hold a discussion and a
yeah,
conversation about his book and the cultural practice."
you know what? In hindsight, Kofi, I had an advantage in this podcast, right? Because I know both of you guys have been years studying this, like double-digit years. Y'all get it in. Y'all can go back and forth about whatever, right? I'm totally like, I don't know any of this. I'm really, really a student in this moment. I'm learning right now in real time, like everybody else. I can really tell a person, like, man, go and get the book. Like, you're going to really learn because I'm not here like a well seasoned person at this topic. Out of all our shows, I knew the least about this topic. And I really enjoyed the book. I learned a ton. And like Kofi just said, I held the conversation just fine, in my opinion.
I
So
wrote the book for
it's good.
people like you. Though.
Yeah, you
That's
did.
I
You
wrote the
did.
book for. I didn't write the book for priests of 22 years or nothing like that. I wrote the book. I wrote the book for people that had never heard of this topic in their life. And this is why at the end of the book, I start to name traditions that you probably never heard of. Because I want to expose people to what's actually out there. And that was one of the primary reasons why I even wrote the book in the first place, because I did a presentation on the topic, but I wanted to expand on the topic and place it in a manner in which it was easily digestible for the people. And I just, I look at this comment from Chris Jack. Hey brother, um my lane is something you have to experience. So unless you can match me in experience, or unless you can quote literature from my practice that puts me in error, I'm not really interested in a conversation with you. And that's me putting it very politically and very nice, because you can't challenge me. I'm gonna be quite honest. I've traveled too much, sat at too many elders' feet, put too many sources in those books. But what you can do, and what anybody can do, is put your own publication out and refute anything that I say. That's the beauty of academia. The
And
beauty.
you know what?
The beauty of
Yes,
scholarship. Put
yes,
your own
yes,
thing
yes,
out. And
yes.
what? Send me the book, and I'll critique that.
Right.
Until then, it is
You
what
know
it
what?
is.
I appreciate it whenever the brother Assault, I don't know if Assault's still here or not, but at one point years ago, Assault Imhotep was kind of going back and forth with Dr. Wesley Muhammad. I respect both of those guys, but I appreciate the most they wrote actual text back and
Wrote
forth.
articles. Yeah, they
It
wrote
wasn't.
articles.
It wasn't no
I mean,
confrontation. It wasn't nobody's family in
right,
danger.
right.
I'm gonna sit down and write,
And
and
I'm not in the business of
you know,
that. Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I hope it never comes to that over
No, no, no.
you know
It was just good to watch those brothers actually take the time, because it takes time to publish work. It takes time to do this. If you're gonna
absolutely.
sit down and do a text and respond back, I gotta respect that. I gotta respect that. You know what I'm saying? Gotta respect that.
He's saying he's not in opposition. I am.
Then I don't understand your first comment,
Yeah,
because your
yeah.
first comment sure says,
Yes.
"I'm sure you all read academic publications on your discover." Oh, now I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying now. My apologies, brother. It's a live
Um,
broadcast. Read things kind of fast.
I don't wanna. I don't
I
wanna.
give
I don't wanna have to leave. My job is calling me for a situation. I have to leave. I have to step out. But thank y'all very, very much. Thank you, brother Ben, for coming on.
Hey, no problem,
I
brother.
gotta go attend to this particular matter. But thank y'all very much for the Griot Podcast, man.
All right, yeah, we finna get ready to end it, man.
All right.
And real. All right, peace, brother. And we
Yeah,
finna
peace,
get
peace.
ready to end. We finna get ready to end it. But we don't just read. We like the Mossy Warrior Clan, Kofi Piese research team, other people that Sean may have mentioned, Asar Hotel, and other individuals that we respect, right? um we don't just take value off of just reading academic work. We understand what proper research methodology is. So there's a process that we go through when we reading any type of text, right? And not only that, reading other type of text, Brother Ben is a well-traveled individual. Man, he done traveled to Kemet, he done traveled to South Africa, he done traveled to the Senegambia area, right? And I've talked to various people in Ghana. I have a relationship with people in Ghana. I have a relationship with people in Nigeria, and especially now I've reached out to some few people y'all going to be seeing here pretty soon. I'm a part of the Igbo tribe. I recently found out that I already knew that my heritage go back to Nigeria, but I just recently found out about 2 months ago that I am a part of
That's
the
Igbo.
Igbo tribe,
The
right?
Nigerian market is Igbo.
Mm-hmm. So in the Gambia area, with some of our books are in the Gambia area. We have relationships with a school with the CEO and founder Fatu Sangay Alu, who is the principal, of the Gaya Journal Skills Academy, right? So we have relationships in West Africa. We have where we can call at any time and ask, and pick the brains of others and get information from those who are actually living the traditions, grew up in the traditions, and so forth. So there's a lot of things. So we just don't go off just reading a book and say, okay, just because he
Oh,
said he's a scholar and it's been published in
can't
the
do
academia realm, that okay, that
can't
this
do
is
that.
what it must be.
But
Right.
but that goes back to what brother Chris is talking about in the comments and what I think he was alluding to. There are a lot of people that write books, and they have misnomered things, not doing, their proper research. They've misnomered things, and that which they have misnomered has become, an extremely popular idea.
Mhm.
And then, we come across it and be like, that's not that. And I hate to be that bad guy, but I usually am. I'm like, no. I was like, brother, you almost had it, but there's something you need to consider, uh, you know, when looking at it a certain way. So it's like I was telling somebody last night, what you know is not nearly as important as how you think. Because you can know a lot, but the way that you arrive at that information, at the methodology used to conduct a proper literature review or a research method, and use discernment to look at the evidence is way more important than what you know.
Mhm.
Because you could know nothing about a topic, but using proper research methods, you can arrive at the same conclusion I can
Mhm.
if you know how to apply those methods. So what you know is not nearly as important as how you think. And brother Neil deGrasse Tyson taught me that when I took his master class, because that was a very insightful thing that he said. And it made me realize that research methods are just so important for what we are doing today.
He's my favorite astrophysic. Got,
Absolutely.
got quite a few. I think I got 2 or 3 of his books, man. But we supposed to do the woman segment, but we're not gonna go through the woman segment since my co-host has to leave the building abruptly to go take care of some business on his job. So we're gonna end the show, man. Again, I want y'all to give it up for Blak Pantha. This was a phenomenal interview, like I thought it was gonna be, man. It's well better, I knew it was gonna be a great interview, but it succeeded what I thought, and everybody in the chat seemed like they enjoyed it, they learned, they loved it, and this is what it's all about. It's about bringing people on and clarifying and getting some understanding about some stuff, man. And this was a great topic. I think that we discussed, and he broke down, what I'm saying, in a scholastic way, in a cultural experience way, where we able to grasp these concepts and these ideals, right, and these cultural experiences, man. So again, I appreciate you, brother, for coming on the Griot Podcast, man. Hopefully this won't be the last time, when you put your other book out, because this is like I said, this is a literature podcast. So we're always highlighting books. If we're not having a host on, like I said, we're actually doing things. So book reviewing things that we have read, but we try to bring on authors, and talk about literature because this all what it's all about. It's about literature. So again, I appreciate you, brother, and we be glad to have you back whenever we get out this new publication.
Well, I like you. I'm a ghost writer as well. So when I finish with her book,
Okay.
I can put out mine.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I understand that, brother. I understand that because it's pressure when you doing those types of things, man. Ghostwriting, and I'm gonna have probably, man. You know what, Ben? I would like to bring you back sometime next year, man, to talk about ghostwriting, so people can understand uh the process and going in ghostwriting. I wrote a movie. I wrote a movie script. I ghostwrited the movie script. I'm in the process of now almost finishing ghostwriting a book for another client of mine, which was the most hardest thing I was ever to do because that ended up having for me to have to go buy other material and read other material just to make sure that it's on top and to keep in because we in a relationship now. Like, especially you in it when you publishing books, you in a relationship, but when you ghostwriting, you're definitely in a relationship with
You
your
go into
client.
that person's mind and they
Yes.
brain, and
Yes.
you like,
Yes.
wow, well, how did this make you feel? Or how
Yes.
did this experience, especially when it's like a biographical
Mhm.
type
Mhm.
book? You're like, well, how did this affect your mental state?
Mhm.
What were you
Yes.
going through at this particular
Mhm.
time? And
Mhm.
there's so many questions you got to ask. Yeah, you in a full fledged
Relationship, I'm
with
telling you.
that person, and you in
Yeah,
their
hey.
innermost thoughts and feelings, and
Yes.
oh wow.
Yes.
To answer some questions I see in the chat. Yes, these Shay lecture series will be coming back. We just gotta settle on a topic to bring to y'all. The Mossy Warrior Clan shows will continue. I'm working on Inside the Gambia Museum, part 2. And to my brother Ogun Bola. Bó ṣì ṣe àgbo àtọ̀, aṣọ èwo fún Echo share on your initiation, brother.
I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah. He is now in the sacred fraternity of Ifa initiates. Congratulations. My man. Congratulations, brother. But yeah, man.
But yeah, man, and we gonna end it. But like I said, man, I definitely want to bring you back, man, after you get through with yours. Like I said, I'm almost through with this publication of mine, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. And maybe next year sometimes we can bring people back and talk about the ghostwriting process, man. So because it's all about teaching and learning, for teaching others what we know, man. That's my saying as I learn, we all learn. I believe in whatever we learn, we should be able to pass that information down to someone else and not hold that information to ourselves, whatever it is, man. So again, man, I appreciate you for coming on the platform. And next year, I'm gonna try to do better too. I'm gonna try to put out some more presentations on Mossy Warrior. I hadn't even did none on this channel neither, man. I kind of got away from the presentations for a while, but I got to get back in my roots, you know what I'm saying, and
Yeah,
put
I'm getting
those.
back into it too, man. So
Yeah.
we both trying to keep up with Sean.
Yeah, because he is a machine. Sean is a damn machine, bro. He is a machine, bro. That man be doing 2 and 3 shows a day, man. Sometimes look like I said,
It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, God
yeah,
damn,
yeah,
Sean.
I'm like, damn. I click
Boy,
on,
bed.
yes, he is a machine, man. But if you ain't got his work, man, go get his work, man. He got a nice piece of work out, man. Refuting a lot of the information dealing with the elbow people. And again, that's what it's all about. It ain't about sitting up on here stroking your ego and arguing back and forth with people. If you got an issue with somebody, like Ben said, do it in a way where you put it on paper. You know what I'm saying? Don't talk to me until you got something on paper or in a book, right? So that's where we at with it, man. Again, I want to say peace. Appreciate y'all for tuning in to the Griot Podcast. And we'll see y'all at the end of the month for episode 10. And going into the new year, we got we got something new coming, and we're gonna announce that on episode 10, man. So for season 2. So man, peace, and we out of here.